the same, you guys. It's really windy. We're still on the battery. We're up here by the wall. I see some folks out here. They're taking their morning walk. Now, they're a little bit heavier than I am, so they're not blowing quite as much as I am.
Good morning, John and Tessa. Yeah, this morning we're talking about those rise in gas taxes. Let's talk about that first. It's 2 cents per year starting in 2017. Right now, folks are paying about 22 cents extra.
We are here in Columbia, John, and we can feel the energy in the crowd. The bus is here. The people from the bus are here, and they're excited to be here. Low country teachers.
Apprehend, so we are able to send the dogs in and keep everybody safer.
And so they go through quite a bit of training. Do you want to kind of explain a little bit about
Taco Boy will be the first to open shop here at Nexton Square, and the GM of the shopping center tells me that people can expect to see the rest of the businesses open.
Good morning, John, Tessa. Chief Kevin Cornett is fresh on the job. He started just 2 weeks ago.
Good morning, John and Tessa. This special election is for Berkeley County Council District 3.
Good morning. So workers have been on scene here for about an hour. Former students say this is the first time they've actually seen work being done in terms of the project.
Yeah, Tessa, so starting today, federal workers for the first time since before Christmas, they can get right back to work here at Fort Sumter National Monument. You see these steps here, they lead right up to those front doors.
As the sun rises over the Potomac River, a new day is dawning in the nation's capital, shedding light on history of days past. Slavery, Reconstruction, segregation, religion, pride. Over 30,000 objects across 85,000 square feet.
Since opening its doors in 2016, the National Museum of African American History and Culture has seen over 5 million people walk through its doors. Inside, pieces of our Lowcountry history.
We were among the thousands of visitors to traverse 5 floors of exhibits. Museum curator Dr. Joanne Hippolyte took us on a tour.
Charleston, South Carolina, and South Carolina just in general is well represented across the museum.
We saw a few familiar faces, like Mount Pleasant native Mary Jackson. The museum boasts the largest collection of sweetgrass baskets crafted by the Lowcountry artisan.
And we're really grateful for it because she is a true master of the craft of making sweetgrass baskets.
Another master of their craft, a Lowcountry son, Philip Simmons, whose influence is part of the museum's exterior.
The outside of the museum's building has all these Corona panels on it, that looks like ironwork itself. That's actually inspired by men like Philip Simmons.
Also on display, on a separate floor, a restored 2-room slave cabin that housed enslaved people on Edisto Island. These exhibits, just a small glimpse into what life was like for South Carolina slaves. But some 530 miles from the National Mall is the future site of the International African American Museum, where African American history will be told through the lens of the Lowcountry. It'll be built at Charleston's Gadsden Wharf, the disembarkation point of up to 40% of all American slaves. President and CEO Michael Boulware says that gives us an advantage.
You know, that gives our effort, I think, a very powerful frame to tell the story. There has to be a great African American history museum on the Mall in D.C. with all the other great Smithsonian museums. But there also has to be a great museum here because, as the head of the Smithsonian, Lonnie Bunch, says, this is one of the few sacred places of African American history in the entire hemisphere.
Where so much of America's early colonial history began. Tessa Spencer, ABC News 4.
Almost anywhere in the Lowcountry, you can find staples of art, even on sides of buildings like this painting we see here along America Street. This February, we're introducing you to Black artists from in and around the Lowcountry.
I'm not an art teacher. No. I'm an artist, and I share what I do.
Ask anyone what art is, and you'll get thousands of answers.
It's not that I'm teaching art, but this is what I do every day. So at the beginning of my day, I just come here and share it with some young people.
Sharing whether he's in the classroom.
Collectively, it's been about 10 years of sharing.
The barbershop. Or in the studio.
You're supposed to share what you do, so it's all art. Everything I do is it's coming from my hands.
Whenever inspiration strikes.
I'm creating every time. They're connected, they're not, 3 different worlds at all.
His work is innovative, but as old as time.
If you just happen to leave here tomorrow, right? You can't let it die with you.
The idea of a blank slate, no longer his fear.
I think I'm getting old, so I got patience now, you know?
Damian Johnson comes from a big family, from a small town.
Reevesville. A lot of people associate that with St. George, South Carolina. Grits capital of the world. You know, that's where I'm from, country boy.
The Dorchester County native shares his canvases with students at Orangeburg-Wilkinson High School.
This is our college walk, all right? So what we try to do is funnel all the traffic in when people have to come to the school. We try to funnel them through these doors so they can see our college walk.
Creating visionaries who happen to have an artistic eye.
We have a great one right here, Clapham University, you know, and others.
Idealism to some.
You know, I like to deal with beauty in things, you know, so I would say an artist.
A craft he's been molding for decades. Sports medals or academic honors, they were never around his room.
I wasn't the best in basketball compared to my brothers. You know, I wasn't the fastest. I think I was a little fat back then. I wasn't the smartest in the house. So I finally found something that I could do.
Creating masterpieces by simply connecting the lines.
So it's probably around 5th grade when I kind of, you know, fell in love with it. Not because I loved it, but because it was something I was good at.
The work lining the walls of his studio each have their own story.
That whole series was put together using the resting faces of slaves from pictures, from photographs. The resting faces of slaves were so interesting because you saw all of the pain and work in their faces.
Finding a canvas just about anywhere.
This came from a series called Doors. You know, that's the only thing that holds that series together. The subject matter is just totally, you know, random, but they're all painted on actual doors.
His picture has already been sketched. There's even some underpaint. And with each broad stroke, he adds to the collection of art called life.
Art is the one thing that makes you enjoy the world. Art is far more important, far more than just being important to the world. It is the world. It is the world.
You ready?
With a flick of the wrist.
Woo! First time. First time.
Cole Gaither, with his trusty co-pilot,
Axel, get out here.
flips planes for a living. An unexpected career that's taken off from a Johns Island airport.
In 2009, I was unemployed.
That was until
We can fix that.
Okay.
I hope.
Clark Hanger, the owner of Hanger Aviation, came along with the funds and idea.
Clark suggested that he would teach me to buy airplanes. And so I began working with Clark, learning about the airplanes that I'd never flown.
And from there, the sky was the limit.
Clark had bought about 15 planes a year, and the first year I worked for him, I bought 46.
Wow.
And we've never looked back.
Planes that looked destined to be forever grounded, now given another go-round. Terrence Ray and his crew of mechanics fix and fine-tune these birds for resale.
Typically, if we don't do paint interior and everything, we can usually get them going about 2 weeks.
And something else that is getting off the ground? A possible reality show featuring the escapades of Cole, Clark, Terry, and even Axel. Plane Crazy follows the crew to all sorts of destinations, with planes running out of fuel in midair to emergency landings. The idea is currently being shopped to networks and streaming services.
Well, you know.
But in the meantime, back on the ground, it's still business as usual with the motto of safety first before every takeoff.
We need great weather with no chance of bad weather. And we need to know that the aircraft is mechanically sound.
And with that, I climbed aboard a 1947 Piper Cruiser, closing the door on my fears.
So, you ready?
I think so.
Yeah, flip that up. And then the key 2 clicks to the right. There you go. Oh, that's good. Okay.
It was time to take off. With the wind beneath my wings, thinking to myself, I must be just plain crazy.